again, I'm reiterating. I have to gather my thoughts. I had too many interruptions. But the idea is economy slow down, dogs become a luxury. People aren't going to want to spend what breeders like these two guys probably want for their dogs. Um, and so they're not going to probably breed as much. And if they do breed, it's because they're fulfilling people who've paid deposits, or they're trying to accomplish something with a particular breeding for their own stock and all of that. So things start to slow down as far as dogs are concerned with breeds that are definitely would be considered a luxury item, like bullies and bull breeds, Frenchies, whatever it may be, companion dogs that are going to come with a hefty price tag. So um, yeah, that's going to slow down. People paying for full price for things is going to slow way down. So when the economy's down, you're just not going to get what you feel like they're worth, and so a lot of people aren't going to breed. A lot of people are going to quit breeding altogether. And then if you're withstanding the ebbs and flows of the economy, what he's saying here is just because you have a turnaround in the short term, or one or even 2 quarters of an uptick, things aren't going to come back fully to the dog world, because people need to see more stability, and the money has to flow, and they're going to have to see the fruits of their labor right in front of them, not like, oh, next summer I'm going to be flush, or I'm going to have a disposable income, so I can pay now and replenish my money in 6 months when the economy gets even further on an upswing. People don't think like that, because there isn't the disposable income for most people to think like that. People have to have confidence in the economy and have to see, interest rates on a consistent base being lowered, and then, fuel costs and housing costs being stabilized and all that sort of thing. And these are the kinds of things that all tie into stable dog economy, is when the overall economy is healthy, and people are feeling stable, and people are going into buying houses, and now they can have a dog, and maybe even a dog like an XL bully, or a bigger dog, or a more aggressive dog like a Rottweiler, or whatever it may be, because they don't have the same rules, or you can't have a dog over 50 pounds, or a dog that's considered an aggressive breed. So they can make those decisions that they couldn't when they were living in the apartment or condo. And so when the housing market isn't there, and people aren't buying houses, and they're not moving into situations where they could feel comfortable getting another dog or getting a dog, that all of that combined does not create a healthy dog economy, and worth it for a lot of breeders when their first motivation is to make a profit. A lot of breeders aren't going to want to breed because they can't get what they want out of their dogs. So all of that combined just creates what they're talking about here. I wish I could be a little more succinct, but hopefully people get an idea what I'm trying to say. But what he just said here, well, French Bulldog or a Mastiff, one's bigger and going to cost more money to feed and maintain, and you're going to have bigger spaces and all that sort of thing, or a French Bulldog. Well, that's a bad comparison, but I get what he's saying. Smaller dog doesn't cost as much. You don't need as big a space, and so. But French Bulldog is a bad example, because French Bulldogs are expensive. Not only are they expensive to purchase, they're expensive to maintain. Companion bull breeds are not cheap. They're not a plug and play type dog. It's not a dog that you can keep outside. And run around and then open the back door and let them come in, because they're highly weather sensitive. They aren't a hardy breed. They're tough. They go straight forward. They're fearless in a lot of ways, and they run around and jump and roughhouse. And so you think they're built like a brick, but a dog built like that has a lot of limitations, and so you have to be mindful of those sorts of things when you're getting French bulldogs. So they're not cheap to purchase, and they're not cheap to maintain, and they're very sensitive about a lot of things, food and environmental factors that may cause skin allergies. Companion bull breeds are not a plug and play dog, and I don't ever suggest anybody getting one at all. Like, stay away if you're a person that doesn't want to maintain those sorts of things, and like I've mentioned before, if you don't want to wipe their ass when they go take a dump outside, because you don't want their tail pocket to get infected, and you don't want to have them to leave shits stains on your couch or your clothes, then you wipe their ass half the time, and so these are things that people that don't own bulldogs of this nature don't understand, and please stay away. Don't get them. You don't deserve the trouble, So they're not a dog for most people, and unfortunately, they've become a business instead of a dog, a companion breed that people can love and cherish and enjoy the little idiosyncrasies and put up with things like wiping their ass and that kind of thing, because you love their personality. Of course, you love the way they look, and you want to take care of something like that. If it speaks to you, which it speaks to me, then great. Frenchies are a great thing for you. That's the kind of a dog you enjoy. Perfect. But if it's not, and despite you liking the way they look and their attitudes and everything, but you don't want to put up with the other things that come with owning a dog like that, don't get them. Stay away. Go get yourself a pit bull mix. Go get yourself an XL bully or a dog that you don't. Well, even now those you have to worry about. They're not necessarily strictly hardy breed either in a lot of ways. But go find yourself a decent lab or something where you can take hiking and let run around and it's going to be withstand a lot of things, and you're not going to have to worry about the little things that you do with companion bull breeds. And then they're easily trained compared to Frenchies. Frenchies are notoriously difficult to train. Potty training was difficult. This little shitbird that I got in here right now with me, Ronnie, my little one, the littlest Frenchie that I have, he wears fucking diapers half the time he's in the house. I mean, and he's an uncut male, and I have another uncut male, and so you gotta put with that sort of stuff. And so I don't want any him lifting his leg somewhere, which these two little bastards that are uncut tend to do. They're very difficult. 1 out of 3 of my Frenchies doesn't do that sort of thing in the house, and he never really has. He was pretty easy after the real puppy stage to train. He goes outside when he has to, and he holds it in. But these guys, if you turn around and you're not at the back door when they want you to be, they're just going to go where they go and move on. So if you don't want to put up with that, go get a Frenchie. They are not easy to train as far as that's concerned. They're very stubborn with things like that. I agree with this sentiment here, not necessarily as an example, but I agree that people, what's easier to sell, a big XL bully or a smaller dog like say a Chihuahua or a Yorkie or something like that. Those are going to be a lot more or accessible for people and easier to turn around and sell to puppy homes and that sort of thing. And you may get a bigger price tag out of these XL bullies, but what's a more sustainable breeding program dealing with a breed that it just sells itself, or a dog that you have to create a whole marketing campaign, pretend to justify these high price tags, and then when the economy is in the tank, people aren't spending the money, and then they're definitely not going to want to spend the money on a dog, a big dog that takes up a lot of space and eats a lot of food. So, these are all things that don't create a confident consumer base when you're dealing with things like XL bullies or expensive breeds out there, more of your exotic style dogs. When you're renting, or you're living under an HOA, like in a condo or an apartment, and you want a dog, and say they allow dogs and all that, a Shih Tzu or a Boston Terrier or a Pug or what, they'll allow that, but they're not going to allow an XL bully or a German Shepherd or dogs like that. It's just those apartment complexes are few and far between, and a lot of times when they do allow that sort of stuff, they charge you a premium. So again, then that doesn't come cost effective at all. You're paying $200 extra a month to have a dog or something on those lines. I've heard about that. I've heard that sometimes is the price tag. You're not going to get the big price tags of a French Bulldog with some sort of color scheme that people want to buy, but you're going to easily sell a dog for $1,500. It's going to be a lot easier for people to swallow. They're going to get a loving dog that that is well bred from a conscientious breeder, and then they're going to enjoy it and fall in love with it, and they're going to be paying a quarter of the price or less. It may not be your first choice, but at the end of the day, you bring that puppy home, who cares, right? That goes out the window. You're going to love and cherish that dog, and it's going to be, add some enjoyment to your life. And even if it wasn't your first choice of type of dog, it's going to become your first choice. So these French Bulldog breeders and these bully breeds and all this, they're fooling themselves. And, their market is sustainable, and this is a sustainable business. It's not. This is not a sustainable business. You need to have either a realistic mindset and a kind of revenue stream that you're limiting your liability, your financial liability, and you're doing things in a way where when you do sell puppies or stud fees and all of that, you're creating a different kind of revenue stream than just the black and white of it. And there's many ways to go about that, or I wouldn't say many ways, but there's other ways that go about it, and just study some of your most successful breeders in these breeds. They're not breeding 5-6 litters a year themselves. If you pay attention to what they say, they've got their own little breeding community more than anything, and they're at the head of it. It's like a pyramid almost. And I'm not saying it's a pyramid scheme. I'm just saying that they built a foundation, and now they're utilizing people that they work with to also profit from breeding They're not doing all the work themselves. So it's quite easy to see that breeders that do it themselves and rely specifically on their own dogs. Well, take this QBN guy for an example. I think he breeds XL bullies. I don't know who he works with and who he doesn't work with, but he's obviously created his own little business, and dogs are just part of that business. As far as his own dogs and breeding is concerned, I think the guy's got a vibrant content creation business going, and it's based around his dogs. So those are the sorts of things that breeders today don't quite understand, and the COVID generation of breeding is over. Even before that, I just don't see that economy ever coming back. I remember studying this in 2016, 17, 18, and saying to myself, man, these people are raking in the dough. That's expensive to buy a dog. And I remember back in the early 90s, English Bulldogs going for 2,000, 2,500, and thinking how exorbitant that was even then when I didn't really have the concept of money. I just remember how much of a sacrifice it was when we bought dogs, and I think we paid $1,800, and the breeder, we were repeat customers, so they gave us a little bit of a discount, and I just remember like thinking, oh my God, look at all that cash, and that's expensive. And my parents would definitely said that, but we love dogs and we love bull breeds, and so that was the thing. Reality is that how many XL bullies do you see in an urban environment or in a suburban or in a rural area? You don't see them. I think I've seen maybe a handful of XL bullies in the wild. Recently, I just saw one in Poulsbo, and it came from a pretty popular XL bully breeder here in the Northwest. The dog was really cool looking, and I could easily see myself owning a dog like that. The gentleman was a nice guy, and he was really interested. He didn't know a lot. He was learning, and he paid $6,500 for his dog. Yeah, $6,500. That's why you don't see them. Just as much as you don't see them in the urban environments because of the way people live. A lot of people are renting. A lot more people are living in smaller spaces like condos and apartments and townhouses and stuff. And then they have all these HOA type rules, and XL bullies are looked at as pit bulls. And so, good luck getting somebody who doesn't know dogs to understand the difference between the two. And then, then you add the inconsistent temperaments that XL bullies come with. So you may show some characteristics that people think when they think of pit bulls and all of that. So, yeah, I get that's for sure. That's a valid point, but I think it goes deeper in that. And the deeper it goes is really that XL bullies is a very small niche market. The reason why we think there's so many of them out there is because when people are involved in these breeds, a lot of times they have more than one dog, and a lot of times they invest money into these dogs because they think they're going to get a return. You don't purchase something for $6,500 and not think about getting a return back into some of your money. You just don't. And if you want to buy a pet for $6,500, you're either somebody that has disposable income or is wanting that dog as to show off. Look at my bully. No, not many people have them. They don't know what it is. Blah blah blah. I paid $6,500 from them from this X and X breeder that sells these dogs for this much, and they won all these ribbons, and they have this real fancy kennel, and so you use it as a talking piece or piece of art or something on those lines. Um, but how many people actually do that and still not want some sort of return back into their money? Or let's say they don't think about it, and then they're like, "Oh man, 6,500. I could stud them out, and I could get $3,000 of stud credit, and I stud them out 5 times, and I've made money off my dog." That sort of thing. So it just garnishes that sort of mentality, and it perpetuates these inflated prices. And so when the economy hits the skids, you're the first to go. It's not that Yorkie breeders selling Yorkies for $1,200, $1,800 a pop. It's your bull breeds that are inflated their prices and out priced a pet market that is not going to be sustainable. It's just not. So if you're really into breeding dogs and you want to profit from breeding dogs, you're not necessarily going to, unless you're just looking at the price tags. You really start to peel the onion here. You're going to realize that this is not a sustainable business, and these prices aren't sustainable, and the economy is always going to have ebb and flows, and these breeds are going to be the types of breeds that are always going to go by the wayside when the economy hits the skids. If the economy doesn't hit the skids and you're making money, great. Then you're going to benefit from it. But then at the end of the day, are you breeding good dogs, and are you just fulfilling the uptick in the economy, or are you trying to get to some point? And I think people that truly breed dogs for a passion are trying to breed the best dog that they can breed, and they have a vision of what that dog is, and they're breeding towards that vision. And sometimes that vision changes, and sometimes that vision splits off, and you have multiple types of ideas. And but that's the creative side of dog breeding. That's the artistic side of dog breeding. So that aside, I look at the mentality of people trying to get what for lack of a better term, to get the bag now, and charge as high as price as they can, create a mentality where you're looked at as a Lamborghini dealership instead of a Honda Civic. Which car is going to last longer and have fewer problems and be cost effective and is going to get you to where you need to go? It's that Civic. That Lamborghini is just one big money pit. You know what I mean? And so there's just so much that can go wrong with that vehicle and all of that sort of thing. And that's what bull breeds have become. It's become a sales pitch. So it's a business scheme. It isn't about owning a dog and a pet and trying to breed the best kind of dog for a pet market. It's about the breed style of dog to perpetuate the breeder market. So it's breeders selling to breeders, selling to wannabes, selling to wannabes, selling to breeders, selling to breeders, selling to wannabes. It's just this vicious circle. It's not based on reality, and you're pricing out a whole pet market. You're not welcoming to new people into the breed. You're not. You're not going to get solid individuals with critical thinking skills and the ability to do these things because you've outpriced them. It's goofballs like me who are in love with bull breeds and are always going to have a bull breed type of dog that will buy your dogs, and then it's your breeders and your wannabes that you either have to fool into buying your dog, or you get lucky and you have something that is marketable to whoever. It's just not a sustainable way of thinking. And it's easy to see that when the economy really hits the skids like it has now. I mean, this, whether they call it a recession or not, we're teetering on that. It's things aren't getting better. There's no end in sight. There's wars and calls to action everywhere. It's just not. It's just not a stable time for any business, let alone breeding. Yeah, 100%. Most of the dog owners out there own smaller to medium-sized dogs. Big dogs are definitely a lifestyle commitment. I have a large dog. I have a 120-pound missile, just about 10 feet from me right now. He's a great dog. I love him. I think he's added such a great thing for our family, but it is a commitment. And plus he sheds. He sheds like a son of a gun. So these are all things that you got to think about. They're a much more bigger commitment than a small dog. Well, a small companion breed dog. Not the small dogs that I have, besides my Shih Tzu, and even then, she's probably a little more sensitive than even a Yorkie. Well, you see that. I kind of mentioned that earlier about when you see these dog channels on YouTube or Instagram or whatever that have an exorbitant amount of following. Yet the individual is, maybe only bred a handful of litters, and really it's just an enthusiast. All of a sudden they become an authority. And they are, like you said, that's a good way to put it, directing traffic. They reap the benefits a lot of times if they have a large enough following, so why not do it? I'd just be embarrassed if I was those people. If I was a year in trying to direct traffic, forget about it. And I make a point of not talking about breeding in a way where I'm an authority figure or anything like that. I'll talk all day about subject matters that any of us can critically think about, like the economy and dog breeding and all that. But the ins and outs and the daily life and all of that sort of thing, I can only talk from the perspective of somebody who's owned bull breeds and paid the money and done the things on the consumer side of things, and then maintaining more than just a couple of dogs. Like I have 5 dogs right now, so I can talk about what life is like with that and different breeds now. I have a working style dog, livestock guardian. I could talk about the differences about living with that and all those sorts of things. But breeding and the ins and outs of breeding, forget it. As much secondhand knowledge and third-hand knowledge that I've learned, I will never pretend to be an authority on that sort of thing. So when you ask me things about diet and all that sort of thing, I can only go off of my evidence, not not on a breeder's perspective evidence of things, and maintaining that kind of existence. There's so much to be learned about the ins and outs of that kind of thing, and you only learn it by doing it, and doing it a lot. I would say 10 years and you're still not an expert. You're just intermediate, and a lot of people don't even make 10 years. So you've got to think about that. Maybe if you're 10 years in and you've had 50 litters or something on those lines, okay, then maybe you could be considered an expert. But if you're having 1 or 2 litters a year, you're still you still are in the learning process, in my opinion. Some people can take to it and they learn really quick, and those are the type of people that have probably higher than average IQs, or this is the subject matter that makes the most sense to them, so they can decipher things on a quick basis. But for me, I'm a type of individual that has to learn from making mistakes, or getting so anxiety ridden and not feeling comfortable about what I'm trying to accomplish until I've done it at least 10, 15, 20 times, to even consider myself having any kind of knowledge. So, I think that you see that a lot in this business, whether it be content creation, dog breeding, or anything in between. You get a lot of people that become authority figures, and instead of trying to share their knowledge that they've learned and their journey in the process of learning, they're selling you game. And you see it so much, especially in the bull breed world, and it's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing that people fall for it. Not to say that I haven't. There's been a couple of times where I've caught myself really like, oh wow, that's so cool, blah blah blah, and look at that, and they're a great knowledge, and then you peel the onion and you dig a little deeper, and you're saying, oh well, wait a minute. There's a little more to this story than what they're trying to convey. So, and I've seen that so much in the last few years. I've become very, very cynical and calloused to some of the things. And so I try not to get too cynical towards certain things, but coming at it from a consumer perspective, I think I need to be a little more critical about certain things and not be afraid to talk about it, because I really do feel strongly about consumer rights and advocacy, not just in the dog world, but in any other part of the world. I don't like getting scammed or taken for a ride. Logically, it's just learning where the scammers are, or the people that are trying to run game on you, and just expose them for what they are, and just block them. And 1000%, he's obviously an enthusiast and somebody who's wanting to learn and try to do it the right way, and as he sees fit, right? Whether it's the right way or not, I don't know. But he's a student of the game, and he's soaking it in from people, and he's trying to put that knowledge to use with his own dogs and his own program. And those are the kinds of people that, to me, that you want in the dog world. It's not the people that know how to get Instagram followers or YouTube subscribers or something like that. It's the people that are actually wanting to learn and try to put that knowledge to use, and then are willing to help the person that's newer than them, and try to give them information to help them along their journey. And even if that means that they go beyond themselves, like this gentleman, he brings somebody in the fold, and then that person goes to the person that's even further along in their dog breeding journey to get knowledge. He's going to, set them on the path, that type of thing, or, theoretically, right? So those are the kinds of people that you want in dog breeding, and in the dog business, and any kind of hobby or business. You want people like that are wanting to learn and humble enough to realize that there's a limitation to their knowledge, and that's why they're seeking out more knowledge, and surrounding themselves with other people like-minded that may have more knowledge than they do, and that sort of thing. But somebody who gets a little bit of knowledge, and then all of a sudden they take off with the marketing game, and all of a sudden they become the authority figure within any breed, name it, or any style of dog. It just becomes a perpetual game of a perception and not reality. And unfortunately, that's rife in the bull breed world. It's so prevalent that it's hard to decipher, even with somebody who studies it on a daily basis, who's real and who's not, because you start to learn things and hear things, and somebody that you thought was knowledgeable or had a good grasp on what they were trying to do and weren't bad operators, you find out otherwise, unfortunately. And so you just got to be very mindful and understand that you can't fully invest all your knowledge base on just one person. You have to soak it all in, the good and the bad. it's not a sustainable business unto itself. You really have to breed multiple litters a year and have maybe multiple breeds and multiple lines within those breeds. Who has the money, the infrastructure, and the ability and the time to do that? Not many people. So you're getting people who are willing to saturate a market because they're at the top of the game for this particular moment in time. So they're going to sell their dogs as many as they can for the highest price possible. But eventually, the negatives of that will come to light. Your dogs will start being lesser quality. People with a discerning eye will say, I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go over here. And then all of a sudden that becomes the next big thing. And then the economy hits the skids, and then you're definitely out the window as far as your marketability. Everybody has your dogs. Everybody has the lineages that you've bred, and you're no longer the top dog. You're not going to be selling puppies at a premium price, and you're going to have a harder time getting rid of those litters even at a lesser price. So it's not really a sustainable business the way people are going about it, for one. Number two, is it a sustainable business, period? I say without the infrastructure and without a progressive way of thinking about it and going about it, it's not. You just can't breed 6-7 litters a year and say it's a job. It's your business. How long is that sustainable? You can just see in today's market, you're not going to sell a dog for $6,500 to most people. You're just not, and especially when it's a niche breed like an XL Bully or a French Bulldog. People aren't going to be paying the prices, and then people aren't looking for those dogs. People that aren't into French Bulldogs, who aren't dog enthusiasts, but have heard things on TV and the internet, know French Bulldogs are expensive, and the first thing they say, I would never buy a French Bulldog because they cost too much money. They say that even before the health factor of them. It's such a micro niche market to begin with that you have to be breeding on almost an industrial level to have a sustainable business. You have a way to make money now if you're at the top of the heap, but it's not going to be sustainable unless you have the infrastructure to do multiple litters multiple times a year. It's just not sustainable, in my opinion. So why breed? Well, you breed because it's a passion, and you breed because you're trying to build something. Maybe you're trying to build a business that just has breeding a part of it, but breeding is your passion, and that's why you want to create a business surrounded by your dogs. Somebody brought up my last live, creating a line of leashes and collars and harnesses and things like that. That makes sense. You use that as a business model. Use your dogs or breeding dogs as what you can get out of it as a tiny revenue stream. Maybe content as a revenue stream. Maybe selling something, making something, and then selling it, and use that as a revenue stream. So you've got multiple prongs, revenue streams to create an overall business. But breeding dogs as just one person, it's not a business. It just doesn't seem sustainable to me, especially in today's economy. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to have a goal, and money isn't something that should be the top priority, especially now. because there isn't as much going around, especially for these kinds of dogs that they're talking about. You don't see that in sustainable businesses and industries. Take for Honda and Toyota for an example. They don't need these huge gimmicks like 100,000-mile warranties and all that sort of stuff that Kia and Hyundai have sold. And they don't need to sell you on luxury things that you see with some of American, like Ford or Chevy. They don't need to market their vehicles to something that they're not. It's a sustainable business because their vehicles are going to last. You know, at the end of the day, you're going to be saving money because those cars are going to run and they're going to run for a lot longer, and you take care of them and you're going to get your money out of them. It's a sustainable business, you know. Look at any sustainable industry today. The fluctuation in prices aren't there. It's just an even. There might be a blip down, there might be a blip up, but it's just even. And they just ride the wave of the economy. It just stays. And sure, the car industry is hurting right now, but you know, Honda and Toyota can withstand that because people buy them and they last long, and they know that, and so and they don't overproduce, and they don't for the most part. So I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but that's the best I can come up with now. But you don't see those fluctuation in prices in a business that is sustainable. You don't see desperation coming from businesses and things like that when the economy is down. They just go on. They ride that wave. You know, a dog that cost a year ago $6,500 now is going for $1,200. What does that tell you? To me, it tells me that dog wasn't worth $6,500 to begin with. And if you're going to buy $6,500 and expect a return on that, it's not happening. It's just not happening. It's like buying a Chevy vehicle. You know what I mean? You may pay $65,000 for that Chevy Colorado, but you drive it off the lot. It's already worth $45,000, and then you drive it for a year and it's worth $20,000, and so on and so on, because it's a GM vehicle. It's I don't know. Colorado seemed to be a decent truck, but but you get the point. The depreciation is right up in front of your face, and that's the same with these dogs. You're overpaying now, and you're not going to get the return 9 times out of 10. The people that do get lucky. If that's why you want the dog, and that's why you're into dogs, find something else to do with your money. If you're not passionate about the canine species and you don't love animals, dog breeding is not a sustainable business unless you have the infrastructure and you have the mindset and the ability. But first, you have to love the dogs, and you have to have a passion to breed, and you have to have those things before you even think about being able to make money. You know what I mean? It should not be the priority. I think what interests me the most is when people can make it work and they find a way to do it. And there's a few ways that people do this. I find it interesting. I think it's cool that they are able to do it. I'm not against the profit in the free market or anything like that. I'm against consumers getting screwed. I'm against people being lied to and being put on them. And I've seen good people do this. I've seen people, house moms in the French Bulldog world, lay down some crazy game on me, or try to, and you're just think to yourself, you're trying to scam me. You may be a really nice person outside of this, but all of a sudden you get into these dogs and you become desperate, and the desperation shows in a lot of these breeds, especially your companion style dogs, your micro niche type dogs, like American Bullies, like French Bulldogs, like English Bulldogs. Uh, these dogs, you rarely see them. You rarely see them. We only notice them because we're constantly online looking at dogs, and if we see them in the wild, we're going to be like, "Oh, look at that!" Most people are just going to go right on by. They don't care about those dogs. They think about German Shepherds or that Field Lab or that really cute golden retriever puppy. Most people don't care about these breeds, and then they don't have a positive view of them to begin with because of the types of people who are involved. So we're in a bubble here, and people are running game on people like us. I'm not against people making money. They have to make money. Breeding French Bulldogs is hard work. It's not a natural sort of thing. It's not a process of, you got to artificial insemination, C-sections, whelping. That is hard work when you're looking at a dog like a French Bulldog. They need to make a profit. I agree. Doing it for free, why would you? You shouldn't. But charging $6,500, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 for a puppy is ridiculous. I even say $3,000 is pushing it. So the profit margin on dogs like this is very slim. That's why people charge as much as they do, because they realize, God, I only have 4 puppies, and if I sell them for my regular price of $3,000, and I already paid $6,000 in vet bills, where's my profit margin for all this work? So I get $6,000, and let's say I want to keep one of those puppies for my future breeding program. You're getting even less. So, it just breeds desperation. That's why people are paying trying to charge more than they're worth. Not every French Bulldog is going to be a dog that should be bred and is going to win ribbons in a ring. And unfortunately, that's what's happened, is that people have been sold this bill of lies. So you get poorly bred dogs breeding to poorly bred dogs, and you're just creating this massive wave of badly bred, unhealthy dogs because people are trying to get their money back, or they bought into this line of BS from these breeders that also got by a line of BS. You know what I mean? It's just perpetuation of bad ideas and bad information and hustle. It's like it's not that much more than a guy crackhead when you're trying to walk into 7-Eleven, say, "Hey, my car is around the corner and broke down. Can you spare some change for some gas?" And my wife and kid are in the car, and I need to get to such and such town, and I'm really desperate right now. So you hand him a $5 bill, and then you go around the corner, and you come back, and he's got a couple 40s in his hands. That's what it is almost. It's not that much different than that. You know what I'm saying? So, and even your house browser with that mindset, it's because they got too. So I don't know. I find it very disheartening, and I'm all about people making money, but there needs to be a realistic view of this. You're not going to make a lot of money in French Bulldogs unless you have a massive infrastructure and you're breeding multiple litters multiple times a year. One litter every 4 to 6 months, you're not going to make money. You'll be lucky to get your money back. So you better be breeding for passion and the betterment of your program and the breed itself. Otherwise, why do it? Even if you have a good structured dog and you have a dog that has proven lineage, is it still worth $7,500? not the pet market, not the market that is actually going to be sustainable to your business. The people that you are going to rely on to buy dogs from you aren't going to pay a $7,500 price tag. They're not even going to pay the $5,000 price tag. Let's say somebody that says, "Hey, I really want a good, healthy, structured dog, and my kid's getting into 4-H, and I don't know if I'm going to breed, but so breeding rights may not be like my priority. But I want to have a good dog, and I want it to fit the standard and all those sorts of things." You want to represent your kennel well, so you want to sell them that really good dog that has potential in the ring. What are you going to charge those people? You're going to charge them $7,500 if you're people like in the bully crowd. You're not going to say, "Well, these are really good people, and I want to see them succeed, and it's really good marketing and business for me. So why don't I let them have that dog for 2,000 or 2,500?" That never happens anymore. I rarely, especially in this crowd, I could see some of that in the AKC world. There are people that still really try to help out their breed, and new people in the breed. I hear some really nice stories. So even when I crap on the AKC and the show world and stuff like that, they have a lot more, on average, solid people involved, and they want young people and new people to succeed. But this crowd, the French Bulldog crowd, especially the Bulldogs of off standard colors, they don't give a shit. Then give me the money. I don't care what you want to do with your dog. Give me the money. Maybe you want breeding rights. Okay, it's gonna be $10,000. You know what I mean? That's another thing. You see that in the AKC crowds in some breeds that don't like new people getting involved, like mini bull terriers. Ask a mini bull terrier breeder for full rights and see what happens. They get pretty indignant about it. These are the things that make you second guess wanting to get involved and think about, like, what am I really trying to accomplish here? Who am I really dealing with? I say if people are not willing to work with you, just move on. Just be patient until you find a solid breeder that's going to be open to hearing you out and working with what you want. A lot of breeders don't want to do it, and sure, been run game on too, and they've heard it all, and they're cynical as well. But a lot of it comes from this type of crowd, your companion breed crowd that just perpetuated BS all around, consumer and breeder. You start hearing quotes like that, and you start getting pressured for deposits. Forget about it. I wouldn't put a deposit down, not unless I 100% trusted that individual and probably knew where they lived. Yeah. You take $2,000 away from me, we're going to have a problem. I'm going to do my damnedest within the law. But if that fails, you're putting yourself, you're getting in territory where you're messing with people, and that, I'm not surprised when I hear a story like this. I haven't heard it like this. I haven't paid attention that deep, but there's no way I would put a $2,000 deposit on anything unless, I had the keys in hand, like a car or something like that. I would not. I've been hustled on. I've been scammed. A few times in my life. I don't like that feeling, and I don't. You're gonna have to be really good to get me to be fooled on something, and not the dog world anymore. 5, 6, 7 years ago, yeah. Well, even a couple years ago, I kind of got scammed, but I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't really listen to the game. I just Uh, I ignored a couple of red flags. I just thought my boy Gary, saw he ticked all the boxes, but the breeder didn't tick all his boxes, or what I expect in a breeder, and I should have paid attention to that. I saw the mom and dad. I was super impressed by the dogs. I laid hands on them. I saw the rest of the litter. I did everything that you were supposed to do, but there was a few little red flags that I didn't pay attention to, and I paid the price. He was genetically inferior. It's Crypt Orchid. So, environmental, who knows? But all the vets said it's not worth looking into, because 99% of the time it's genetic. Anyway, so yeah, I can get scammed too. Luckily, it wasn't a big time scam like that in the dog world, unfortunately. And especially in the bull breed companion, I pick on them because they're the easiest target. So yeah, that was a good video. They made a lot of good points. I think that the things where I differ are, I think that they're still trying to inflate a market. I think, because they're so heavily invested in the XL bully world themselves, that I don't think that they wouldn't be against selling a $5,000 puppy, knowing that it's not worth $5,000. So that probably is a little bit of my difference with them. I think good dogs are good dogs, and they're not cheap. But if you're trying to make money, bringing litter by litter is not the answer, unfortunately. And you need to have an infrastructure. You better have a farm or plenty of land, and you better be able to go full time. And how could you do that? How could you do that in today's market and economy? You better have money to invest. You better have, be able to sustain yourself in good times and bad times. And this is not like breeding cattle. It's not even like breeding horses. It's these animals aren't easy to breed. The profit margin is a lot less. You get predatory customers, you get predatory breeders, and then you get predatory veterinarians. So when you're dealing with dogs that need constant attention during the breeding process, like French bulldogs and English bulldogs and American bullies, you're going to get veterinarians that are going to climb onto the profit machine and take their clump. And these are all things that you have to be prepared for, and doing that seems to be foolhardy if you're looking just for a profit margin. This is not a sustainable business. You're just not going to make money at it. So you better be passionate about it, and you better learn how you can break even or make money eventually, but it's not going to come overnight. And you might not ever break even. And the likelihood is you'll quit before you break even. It's not an easy lifestyle, especially when you're looking at dogs like French bulldogs or American bullies. It's just, if you're breeding a dog that can whelp, and you don't have to have constant supervision, and it's a healthier dog, and you don't have to worry about C-sections that much, and you can get a decent profit margin out of it. Yeah, it's sustainable for a breeding program, but as a pure business, I don't know. Even then, you've got to breed a lot. People say backyard breeder this, backyard breeder that, but most good dogs come from breeders that breed 1 or 2 times a year. And breed utilizing their backyard. So that term to me is a little outdated and overused. And then we look down upon the industrial size breeders, your Amish type folks, or your breeders that have multiple breeds and are breeding multiple litters at a time. But that's business. That's how you make money, dog breeding. There's probably ethical ways of doing it, and a lot of people on an industrial scale aren't doing it ethically, and or they're cutting corners where we discerning consumers don't think they should cut corners at. But there are good ones out there. But they put a lot of money into it, and they probably got $1 million facility, and they have probably a couple of employees working for them, or their whole family's involved, and you're a one-man band trying to make this into a business. Good luck. Good luck. You better be passionate about it, and the most important thing in your mind should be the dogs and creating happy customers. Worry about money later. You just, it's not to discourage people or, crap on somebody's parade here. But I just, as somebody who wants good dogs from good people, it's just getting harder and harder to make that decision. Good people start making desperate decisions when they've invested a lot of money into something, and they're not seeing the return that they hoped for. So they start making bad decisions, and decisions that are based solely on economics instead of what's going to be best for their program and what's going to be best for their dogs. And in turn, that's what's best for consumers. It's a bad situation, and desperation is not good. And then I don't like to see good people getting out of it because they've invested too much, and they realize that their expectations weren't going to happen, so they're out of it. There's some good people that been scammed one too many times, and they said, I'm just tired of dealing with scammers on both ends. People trying to buy puppies, or scammers that they try to do business with. So, and I will say, to me, the most scammy type people as consumers are people who are wannabes. It's not your pet people most of the time. Sure, there might be a pet person who really wants a French Bulldog that might try to lay some game to get a cheaper price, but I usually it's people that are trying to scam on behalf of an idea of breeding, or somebody else that's a breeder that they're using somebody else to try to scam somebody for their own gain. I hope people realize I'm not being overtly negative. I'm just saying that I hope people think about these sorts of things before they get involved, and then I hope consumers make better decisions and don't fuel this scammy, predatory behavior. And I'm coming at it from a consumer's perspective. I'm not coming at it from strictly breeder's perspective, even though I have some sympathy or empathy towards the process that breeders go through, and I really appreciate people that do it right and are doing it for the betterment of their program and their dogs. I have so much respect for them, and I feel like I don't even have to say that out loud, I hope, but I'm talking more on the scammer side of things, or the inflated market that is completely predatory, like Raul from QBN said. I agree with that. There's a lot of economic predators in these breeds, and unfortunately, they're the ones that seem to be making the quick buck, and they seem to be driving the market. Even though now it's a little more difficult to do those sorts of things. this gives me an opportunity to say things that I normally wouldn't say on my channel or get involved in. And I like going live and trying to get more interaction. So hopefully, if I do this more often, people will come in and join me. We can talk dogs. Lucky Mojo 7 says, what's the best dry food for Frenchies? Whatever works. Yeah, I'm not an expert. We do Purina Pro Plan because we get the good stuff straight from Purina, and it gets delivered to our house. My wife still has connections in the vet world, and because she worked for a vet for 3 years, and then she still does some things. So she has the ability to order through the vet professional. I don't know exactly what it is, but so we order it from them. It's the salmon and rice is what we formula is what we do. We just had to up our shipments because I had to go buy a bag. It was a smaller bag than what we get shipped, and it was like $20 more. So than the 45-pound bag or whatever it is that we usually get shipped. So it's definitely been cost effective to get it shipped from straight from Purina, and then instead of buying it at your local PetSmart or Petco or something, because I think I paid just like $77 for a 30-pound bag or some crap. So it's not cheap out here. And I think we get like a 45-pound bag for 70 or some bucks or something like that. Whatever works for your dogs. Frenchies and Bulldogs, companion bull breeds, they're so sensitive. Like I even hear good things, and we fed for a while, a couple of times, just like in between getting our shipments, and then having a backup bag, the Costco brand, and it was the salmon and sweet potato formula, which my dogs have been on quite a bit before. But for whatever reason, my boy Artie, it screwed him up. He can't do it. Purina salmon and rice has been the go-to for everybody. So yeah, Bulldogs are, you definitely got to worry about what you feed, and once you find something that works, you got to kind of stick with it. And they do pretty well on that. I'm definitely not a raw diet fan, especially for Bulldogs, because one formula for one dog is not going to be good for another, and you're just going to be like cooking for, in my case, 5 separate dogs. I'm not going to do that. And then they don't get all the nutrients, and you got to balance it out and figure, you got to be a nutritionist that loves to cook dog food to properly feed raw. The raw food diet is a fad, and it's just my opinion. My uneducated, just anecdotal opinion. The raw food diet is not the most stable diet. It may do well for dogs in the short term, and it may, if you have a dog that is ridden with certain allergies or something, maybe it's the best thing in the world for your dogs. But in my opinion, that it's just not. It's not realistic, especially when you have multiple dogs, and you're leaving too much on the table to really get a good idea. See, that's the thing that I'm looking at my. People wonder why I don't stream on my main page or anything like that. Like I'm looking at the statistics now, and I have 3 people watching. For a channel of my size, just even with 70, whatever, 300 or whatever it is, I should be. I should at least get 10 or 12 at very least. But I only have 3, so it's just not something that people, they don't either want to hear from me, or it's just not something they look at my channel as being something that they can get down with, because I'm not necessarily the most entertaining, or going to bring on people that are going to be considered entertaining, because that's not who I am, and that's not what I look for in a guest. So I want, you can be entertaining and cool and flashy all you want, but if you're not realistic, and you're not real dog enthusiast, and all in my opinion, you're phony, but you're entertaining. That's what sells on this platform. So I don't want anything to do with it. I'd rather be surreal and just even and monotone in some way, instead of being animated and bringing on guests that are going to garnish people watching more for a train wreck, or than some sort of like meaningful conversation. So I'm just not. My channel is just not for that kind of environment. So, and I think it hurts when I do go live that I'm not trying to entertain in a way where or be flashy, where people who normally watch lives want it to be. So I and that's okay. I'd rather utilize other platforms like Kick and Twitch, but definitely Kick, because you can see that's why I put that logo up there. Again, follow me, Kick, Twitch, and I might stay on Instagram. So those are the 3 choices that you'll be able to see me here. I'm gonna sign out. If you want to join the live, the link should be in the comments section, and maybe I'll put it in the description when it uploads too. But anyway, and then maybe I'll post the link on these channels. But thanks for logging in, and I'm going to sign out here, and meet me over there on Kick or Twitch, and maybe Instagram if you don't see me there. Again, Kick or Twitch. Talk to you guys later, and thanks for popping in.